I'm gonna middle school define multi-parallel fermentation. That should be the start of the video. So multi means more than one. You know what parallel means. Fermentation means the conversion of sugar into ethanol and CO2.
So beer, you have mash, and your mash has a ton of grains. You boil this mash to break down all the sugars. You boil it for an hour, hour and a half, and then you just have sugar water. Then the yeast eats the sugar water. The yeast will die at a certain alcohol percentage because that's what it's tolerable to. And then you have beer. On the wine side, you have your grapes that become juice that the yeast eats. Sake has this thing called multi-parallel fermentation. Koji, rice, water, and yeast. It's all in there at the same time. So basically our mash, which is for beer, is in there the entire time for roughly 4 weeks straight.
Starches are being broken down at the same time as our sugars are being consumed. We'll add all of our yeast on our first day of starting a batch, and all of our koji will be added periodically throughout that time, as we're adding more rice in. Basically, you're adding enough koji per each addition day to break down the amount of starches you're adding in on that day too.
We want those to rise and fall at the same time so that we get a very smooth fermentation.
It's hard to troubleshoot, is this because the koji or is this because the yeast?
The koji is breaking down the complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. The yeast eats the simple sugars, it farts out CO2, and it basically pisses alcohol. Right? Our tanks are open tank fermentation, they're living, breathing. Our alcohol gets up fast and it protects itself. It has so much bacteria in there where it's living organisms. Multi-parallel fermentation, we're the only beverage that does it, and that's what makes it so unique.